Right now, at the bottom of the ocean, a tube about as thick as your garden hose is lying in the freezing dark. And your overseas calls, your international wire transfers, your streams from the other side of the planet all just crawled through it. Not a satellite, not the cloud. A single fragile wire on the seabed, unguarded, miles below the waves. And here's the part that should keep you up at night. It snaps constantly, and almost nobody is watching it. So, how does the entire connected world hang off something this thin? And what happens the moment one of these threads gets cut? Hold that question. We're going to the ocean floor. Start with the scale, because it's genuinely absurd. Roughly 500 active submarine cables lie on the seabed right now, and together they carry about 99% of every scrap of internet traffic that crosses an ocean. Every overseas bank transfer, every international video call, every foreign website you load, 99% of it doesn't fly through space. It runs through glass. The latest maps count nearly 600 cable systems and over 1,700 spots on land where they crawl ashore, stretching more than 1.5 million kilometers across the bottom of the sea. That's enough cable to wrap around the Earth almost 40 times. Now, the fragile part. Out in the deep ocean, where nothing's going to bump into them, these cables are shockingly thin, just 17 to 20 millimeters across, a garden hose, the width of a bottle cap. And the thing actually carrying your data? Inside that hose sit strands of glass as thin as a human hair, and light pulses race down them, flickering on and off billions of times a second to spell out everything you send. Every so often along the way sits a repeater, a little booster box that catches the fading light and shouts it forward, because after a few thousand kilometers, the signal would just die. The cable comes ashore at a landing station, a quiet beachside building where the ocean cable plugs into the internet you know. That's the whole magic trick. Light, glass, a hose, and a boosted shout across an entire ocean. And it breaks. All the time. On average, there are around 200 cable faults every single year. And that number has barely budged even as we've laid 50% more cable. In 2025 alone, the industry logged more than 170 repairs worldwide, nearly 4 breaks a week. So, what's snapping them? Almost never sharks, almost never spies. It's us. Fishing gear and drag ship anchors cause somewhere between 70 and 86% of all faults. Picture a cargo ship in shallow water dropping anchor, then dragging it along the bottom. It hooks the cable like a plow catching a root and rips it clean through. Anchors alone account for roughly 60 cuts a year, and fixing one isn't cheap or fast. A single repair runs $500,000 to £1 million and can take weeks, because there are only a handful of specialized cable repair ships on the entire planet. When one breaks in the wrong place, you don't fix it. You wait for a boat to sail across an ocean and come find it. Which brings us to the scary word, sabotage. Because lately, the accidents don't all look like accidents. In the Baltic Sea in November 2024, 2 cables were severed in a near-simultaneous incident that NATO officials openly called suspected hybrid warfare. Weeks later, on Christmas Day, a tanker called the Eagle S, linked to Russia's so-called shadow fleet of sanctions-dodging ships, dragged its anchor nearly 62 miles across the seabed, tearing through a power link and 3 more cables before Finland seized it. 62 miles, that is not a slip. And in early 2024, in the narrow Red Sea, 4 major systems were cut at nearly the same time. Cables that together carried an estimated 25% of all internet traffic between Europe and Asia. One carrier reported disruptions spiking as high as 70%. Suddenly, a garden hose on the seafloor is a target in a war nobody officially declared. So, this is the moment you brace for the apocalypse. One coordinated attack, the whole world goes dark, right? Here's the honest twist. No. A total global blackout is very unlikely. And the reason is a boring, beautiful word. Redundancy. In the busy corridors, the Atlantic, the routes into Europe, there are so many cables side by side that data behaves like traffic hitting a closed road. It just reroutes. Those 4 Red Sea cuts degraded service in India, Pakistan, and East Africa. But they didn't fully disconnect a single country. The data poured onto other cables and overland paths through Central Asia, adding maybe 20 to 40 milliseconds of delay, a flicker you'd never feel. The net is a web, and a web survives a torn strand. But here's where the knife turns. That safety net only exists where there are enough cables to catch you. And, in a lot of the world, there aren't. Look at Taiwan's Matsu Islands. In February 2023, the two cables connecting those islands to the outside internet were cut 6 days apart. One by a Chinese fishing vessel, one by a Chinese freighter. 2 strands, both gone. And 14,000 people were knocked back into the digital Stone Age for about 50 days. Sending a single text message reportedly took over 10 minutes. The phone company had to hand out free Wi-Fi and lean on backup microwave links just to keep the islands talking. Now, look at Tonga. This Pacific nation had exactly one international cable, 827 kilometers, its only thread to the world. In January 2022, an underwater volcano erupted and severed it, and Tonga went almost completely offline for 38 days. Fully repairing that cable took 18 months, and it had happened before. In 2019, a ship's anchor did about $1.2 million of damage and blacked the country out for weeks. Because when your entire connection to civilization is 1 or 2 hoses on the seabed, there's no other road for the traffic to take. So, here's the ground truth. The internet isn't in the sky. It's on the ocean floor, in 500 threads thinner than the hose you water your lawn with, laid bare in the dark, cut roughly 200 times a year, and guarded by almost no one. The web is strong exactly where it's crowded, and paper thin everywhere it isn't. It's the same lesson as the water in your tap, the copper in your walls, the power in your grid. The modern world doesn't run on magic or the cloud. It runs on invisible physical things we never think about, until, somewhere in the deep, one of them snaps.